Thank you, Dallas.
When I proposed this theory of relativity, very few understood me and what I will reveal now to transmit to mankind will also collide with the misunderstanding and prejudice of the world. I ask you to guard the letters as long as necessary, years, decades, until society is advanced enough to accept what I will explain below. There is an extremely powerful force that so far as science has not found a formal explanation to. It is a force that includes and governs all others, and is even behind any phenomena operating in the universe, and has not yet been identified by us. This universal force is love. When scientists looked for a unified theory of the universe, they forgot the most powerful, unseen force. Love is light that enlightens those who give and receive it. Love is gravity because it makes some people feel attracted to others. Love is power because it multiplies the best we have and allows humanity not to be extinguished in their blind selfishness. Love unfolds and reveals. This force explains everything and gives meaning to life. This is the variable that we have ignored for far too long. Maybe because we are afraid of love, because it's only energy and it is the only energy in the universe that man has not learned to drive at will. To give visibility to love, I made a simple substitution in my most famous equation. Instead of E equals mc squared, we will accept that the energy to heal the world can be obtained through love multiplied by the speed of light squared. We arrive at this conclusion that love is the most powerful force there is because it has no limits. After the failure of humanity in the use and control of other forces of the universe that have turned against us, it is urgent that we nourish ourselves with another kind of energy. If we want our species to survive, if we are to find meaning in life, if we want to save the world and every sentient being that inhabits it, love is the one and only answer. Perhaps we are not yet ready to make a device powerful enough to entirely destroy the hate, selfishness, and greed that devastates the planet. However, each individual carries within them a small but powerful generator of love, whose energy is waiting to be released. When we learn to give and receive this universal energy, we will have affirmed that love conquers all, is able to transcend everything and anything, because love is the quintessence of life.
In the early to mid 1900s. Uh-oh, am I going the wrong way? Why don't you move me? In the early to mid 1900s, that letter was attributed to Albert Einstein as something that he wrote to his daughter. And they say that, as was mentioned, Einstein asked his daughter to keep keep it until an appropriate time when people could understand the level of complexity that Einstein held in his theories. As a social justice historian, I did my research around the letter, and I was devastated to find that people said, no, actually, he didn't write it. And so I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to start all over, and then I thought, well, people say that about the Bible too. Many believe that it's not Holy Scripture. Many believe the stories are not true. Many believe that the writers are not the writers who said that they were the writers. However, what we do know is that there are nuggets, there are kernels in there that are things that are meaningful for us, that are helpful for us to be able to understand, to know, and to pay attention to. And so I submit that whether Einstein wrote the letter or not, the theoretical information that is found there about love, which many people connect with, hold words, hold truths that we need right now. Einstein and Newton had similar but differing theories about gravity. Newton believed, now which way do I go? Let's see. Newton believed that gravity was a force that pulls objects toward each other. The attraction of two objects whose strength depends on the massiveness of the object and how far apart it is. Gravity then was considered the fundamental force that arises from the mass of an object. The more mass of the object, the stronger its gravitational pull. And I think that we carried that into books and to movies like The Incredible Hulk, where we equated force with mass. So Einstein theorized that gravity is not just a force based on massiveness. He believed in the concept of space and time, and any Star Trekkers out there understand the term space-time that affects gravity. And so example, if we were to have a small round trampoline and we were to gently put a large bowling ball in the center, gently, large bowling ball in the center, it would create a dip in the center of the trampoline. If you were to take a tiny marble and roll that marble around the top of the trampoline, it would go around and around and around until eventually it would reach the bowling ball, but it wouldn't be suddenly attracted to and hit the bowling ball with a downward pull because the ball is more massive. And so that concept of that rotation of going around is the same thing that happens with the sun. So the sun bends space-time around it, and the planets don't run into it even though the sun is more massive. But because the sun has space-time continuum, it is something that continues to go around and around, and the planets revolve around the sun, but they don't hit it. And we're not fearful that they're going to hit it. Because space-time continuum causes forces to hold, to ground, and to center. Stay with me, don't run away yet. So through his research, Einstein discovered what we know as the theory of relativity, something that others during his lifetime couldn't really comprehend. But he was also studying other forces, and one of those forces was love. And people wondered about love as an emotion or a force or a feeling. And it was misunderstood and still is confused and misunderstood, even though it's something that people know about, as some believe it to be a force. But perhaps the world wasn't ripe enough to have understood any of Einstein's theories for quite some time. And perhaps the world is still not ripe enough to recognize the power of love. Because maybe if we really got it, we wouldn't be so frightened about some of the things that are going on in the world today that are causing division, because actually love is stronger. Love is more powerful. Think about it. Some of those words were that love is a force that includes and governs all things. Love is behind any phenomenon operating in the universe. Oh, I got it. Coretta Scott King said, "Love is such a powerful force. It's there for everyone to embrace that kind of unconditional love for all humankind. That is the kind of love that impels people to go into the community and to try to change conditions for others, to take risks for what they believe in." That's not just an emotion. That's something much greater, much more powerful. And maybe that's why the famous words say, "The coward says in his heart there is no love," because standing in the shadows of the big, grand, and powerful existence of love, his small spirit is left feeling even smaller and less significant. And so he chooses to deny the existence of love altogether because he's too small to know how to have it. It allows one to see others as worthy. And maybe that's a piece that's missing right now in some places in the world, is that we don't see others as worthy. We don't see some disenfranchised populations as worthy. And so when we see the outcry of other people on behalf of those disenfranchised populations, we want to deny that that is real because it's so, so powerful. And if you've seen any of the outcry yesterday, last week, last month, the force of love for others is so powerful that it's not giving in and it's not giving up. So love has to be more than an emotion. It has to be the love that is beyond just one special person. It has to be beyond the love of what is known. It's more than just an emotion. It takes more than just an emotion when love is an action. When love becomes a movement, when love becomes strength, when love becomes justice, when love becomes equity itself. And I want to set the record straight. I'm loving on Einstein this week. He's called the father of the atomic bomb, which is not true. When Einstein first started to learn that people in Germany were creating something that he knew could be an atomic bomb, he wrote a letter, that's it, to President Roosevelt and said, "I want you to know that this is going on, and I'm afraid for what is happening in Germany, and I think that the US should step in and do something about this." Unfortunately, the something that the US decided to do was to create its own atomic bomb and then to bomb Nagasaki, which was not Einstein's intention. His love of who he didn't even know moved him to cry out and to say, "I've seen something that is not right. I want to speak to it, and I want something to happen about it." And so his uncommon love for somebody that he didn't know, some bodies he didn't know, in some place that he didn't know well, moved him to speak out. And what a thing it would be if every single time love was not manifesting itself and injustice was happening, that we spoke out, that we had enough uncommon love for who we don't know and where we don't know, but in our gut, it's saying to us, "I need to do something because this isn't right." How strong, how powerful that would be in the world if it happened every single time. I was speaking with someone last week about places that I was going to boycott and my need to be able to boycott. And their response was that they wouldn't do any kind of boycotting if it was something that wasn't going to benefit them, if it was going to harm them in some way. They would opt not to boycott because it just wouldn't be something that would be beneficial to them. And I said, but this issue is one of equity, and equity is love. Full love involves equity, and equity involves the recognition of people receiving things according to their need. But that means that equity also might involve the loss to us in order to be equitable to all. And that's uncommon love, but it's love. And when we get accustomed to privilege, equity might feel like oppression, but when we recognize that equity is an expression of love, a powerful expression of love, especially when it hits you for others, that's something. That's powerful. And so when we live in and from a place of love, we can only operate from moral topography, from spiritual geography, centering our heart in spiritual justice, and there's nothing more powerful than that. And that's called love. There's a book that hasn't been banned. It's the Bible. But it's interesting that people celebrate this period of life of the historical Jesus who lived in an oppressive political system. Sounds familiar? And they don't recognize the love in action and the social justice in action that is actually within some of the pages of the Bible. And they don't always recognize the fact that this historical Jesus, this undocumented immigrant who was smuggled into Egypt without a place to stay, had someone whose love was so strong, their love in action was so strong to fulfill a family's need and to allow them a place to stay in an unpopular refuge. That's love displayed as equity. And whether that story is true or not, what a story that we need to hear now and that we need to follow now. Because love is stronger than those who present strength as dominance. Love is stronger than the things in the world that present inequitable, unjust strength as dominance. And that's a great problem in history, that concepts of love and power have been contrasted as polar opposites, so that love is identified with a resignation of power, and power with a denial of love. But what's needed is the realization that power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and lifeless. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against it. And as the letter mentioned, if instead of E equaling MC square, we accept that the energy to heal the world can be obtained through love multiplied by the speed of light, we arrive at the conclusion that love, then, is the most powerful force there is because it's limitless. It's stronger than the losses that we may be experiencing now. It's stronger than the losses that we may fear we are going to experience now. And sometimes we have to accept finite loss, but we never have to lose infinite hope. Sometimes we have to accept finite loss, but we never have to lose the infinite power of love. Ever. If we see it. If we hold it. If we use it. Because right now there's no cavalry coming to save us. We're the cavalry. We're it. Spiritual justice is God-given, but justice among people is not given, it's fought for. And what we're armed with is love. And someone says, but look at how bad it is. It's so bad right now. And I say, well, is it so bad what is happening, or is it so God in us, so love in us, that we have finally figured out the need to get it together and to get together? Is it so bad, or is it so bad, or is it so God in us, so love in us, that we finally see the need to speak love of justice out loud? To speak love for immigrants, to exhibit love in action for the poor, to exhibit love in action for the disadvantaged, to exhibit love in action for the voiceless, for the fearful, for the sad, for the disillusioned who thought it was going to be different and then discovered that it wasn't. The work of love is teaching us that maybe we ain't been on the same boat, but right now we're in the same situation. Maybe we ain't been of the same mind, but right now we're united with the same common problem. So while the question of who is behind the universal force of love letter is still a mystery, part of the truth that has been revealed is what seems so important right now. That we're different, sentient beings with differing views, injected with homophily. Homophily is the tendency to seek out and be with people who are just like you. Birds of a feather flock together, I think people say. But rather than separating ourselves by our convenient views, we need to learn how to ask more questions of each other to really know what it means to be like each other. We need to be able to ask, tell me more. What do you mean? I want to know. Einstein once even said the most important thing is to not stop questioning. I was side by side at a few rallies with individuals that were completely different from me. And at Selma, I was in a meeting with a number of different religious leaders. Deanne asked me to sit in for her. And the man next to me was a Mennonite. And I think I've told a few people about this, but he kept leaning over to me and saying, help me understand what they mean by that. Because it's not exactly what our belief is, but we're here because we know that this is the place that we should be, and this is the thing that we should do, but help me to understand that. And so he just kept leaning over every now and then, and he would ask me, tell me if this is right. And then at the end he said, we're gonna build a house for one of the people in Selma whose house was taken away and who was not allowed to get a loan to rebuild her house. Is that social justice? And I said, you got it. You got it. But with him were Mennonites from all over the world. And he brought me over to introduce them to me. Some of them didn't speak English, and they just smiled, but they knew what their work was. And they knew that even though we all had differing beliefs, differing personal beliefs or religious beliefs or political beliefs, we were there for the same just reason, motivated by love. And it was palpable. It was palpable in the room because love is just that strong. It's just that powerful. It's when you don't have that things mess up, that things don't seem right, that things hurt other people, that things continue to mess up, and that the language and the rhetoric that is out there in the world starts to weigh people down because love, that powerful force, is missing. So there we were in the room, all very different, but the strength and the courage and the power and the love in the room was unquestionable. We can't afford to risk being like people who allow themselves to be divided and their communities to be divided and the world to be divided. We must let the love in us, see the love in others as a way to unite, knowing that it's the most powerful weapon that there is. We have to stay vigilant and sensitive to divisive power and its forms of expression. It's been said of societal division, it may rule with weapons that are physical or by controlling the resources we need to live, money, food, medical care, or by controlling more subtle resources, information, approval, love. We're so accustomed to power over, so steeped in its language and its implicit threats that we often become unaware of its functioning only when we see its extreme manifestations. And we've been seeing the extreme manifestations, but we probably haven't been so sensitive to the quiet, tiny manifestations that have been around for quite some time. There's this fascinating thing about redwood trees, seen as like the greatest trees of all times. What allows them to withstand the elements is a very interesting thing, because redwood trees are resistant to most insects, they're able to withstand most floods, they're not subject to most diseases, they endure for ages with no natural enemies that would seem to destroy them. And what you find is that the roots of a redwood tree, and normally roots going down are as long going down as the tree is going up, but redwood trees are very different. Their roots are only maybe 4 to 5 to 6 feet deep, but they're wide, and they extend out 100 feet, up to 100 feet from the trunk. They thrive in groves where the roots intertwine, as you can see there, and they even fuse together. And what happens is that the more that the roots of a redwood tree fuses with other redwood trees and other trees, it makes the redwood tree stronger. And that's what gives it its strength, its force, and its ability to be able to live as long as they do. There's your school lesson for the day. And so they don't survive alone. They survive in community. They form what they call redwood tribes, for want of a better word. And sometimes they grow so close that they actually merge together and then form one separate tree. That's their strength and their support, and it's called intertwining roots. So it's not deep, but it's wide, and it lives in the embrace of others.
That's what love is for, to help us through it. That's what love is for. Nothing else can do it. Round off the edges, talk us down from the ledges, give us strength to try once more. Baby, that's what love is for.
So real love is a cosmic force which goes through us, if we let it. If we crystallize it, it becomes the greatest power in the world. Have you thought about the fact that you hold the greatest power in the world, more than anything in the world, if you allow it? So maybe he didn't write it. Maybe those words written long ago weren't hidden by Einstein, but hidden by someone. But are we ready for this now? Because the force of love is yours if you have it. Amen. So Jeremy, let's take this into a moment of, you want to fix me? A moment of meditation. Because before you say this affirmation, I want you to know it. So I'm going to say it to you while you just hold it. I will be the first in love. Not after someone shows love to me, not after something so horrendous happens that I don't have any other choice than to speak out, but I will be the first in love. The first in moral excellence. I will hold my own morals, my own values, as strong enough that I will be sensitive to the wrongs that are going on in the world now. And I will be the first in moral excellence. I will use my power of love, recognizing that the love that I have is powerful, that I don't have to just be a bystander, that it can mean something for me. I will see my own vulnerabilities. I will recognize that I don't have all the answers, but I don't need to be right. I need to do right. I will be strength, not have strength, but be it. When it's the hardest thing to do, I will be strength. When it's the hardest thing to speak out, I will be strength. When it's the hardest thing to do what is right, to speak up for what is right, to stand by other people for what is right, to recognize disenfranchised people and to understand that I am them. If they are disenfranchised, so am I until we are no longer disenfranchised. I will be strength. And I will stand with, by, and for justice. So if you'll say the affirmation with me, I will be the first in love, the first in moral excellence. I will use my power of love to see my vulnerabilities, to be strength, and stand for justice. Amen.